Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. It's so energizing to see so many people who care deeply about using technology to drive real, meaningful change. I'm Dominique Chatfield, Innovation Programs Lead at startAD and the MC for the day. Before we get started, a quick housekeeping note. If a question comes to mind through any of the presentations today, and we hope they will, just drop them in the Q&A box. We'll be gathering those throughout the session and making sure we get to them. So don't let a good question slip. And with that, let's get to it. I'll hand over to Rami, the Assistant Director of Innovation, startAD.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Changemakers Day. Thank you all for spending your morning with us today. I'm Rami Aljundi. I'm the Assistant Director of Innovation at startAD, which is anchored in NYU, Abu Dhabi, and powered by Tamkeen. Before we get into anything, I want to acknowledge the partnership that made this entire initiative possible. Google.org believed in this program early, and their support gave us the runway to build something that I think actually matters. So thank you. I also want to recognize the 5 organizations who trusted us enough to open their doors and do this work alongside us. Ability Pediatric Medical Center, the National MS Society, Abdullah Al Ghurair Foundation, the National Center for Mental Health and KSA, and the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority. These organizations are serving some of the region's most vulnerable populations, and they showed up for this process with real commitment. And I want to thank the teams who gave their time and talent, our mentors, subject matter experts who guided them, the Brink and Zaka teams who supported us, and of course, the amazing startAD team who lived this program every single day. This was a collective effort, and it shows in the results. So what are the next 90 minutes about? We started this program with a straightforward question. How do mission-driven organizations, the ones working with children with autism, people with MS, underserved youth, go from being curious about AI to actually implementing it? Today, we're going to share with you what we found. Here's the structure. Ashwin, our director at startAD, is going to open with the AI Adoption Barometer. This is our survey of 52 UAE organizations across healthcare and social impact. That's the data layer. Then Mike Grandinetti from Harvard Business School brings the global lens, showing what thriving looks like through real use cases. Then I'll come back with the program spotlight, connecting what we built with what Ashwin's data reveals and Mike's pattern suggests. Then we'll hear 2 use cases, one local, one regional, and we'll close with a fireside chat with those practitioners we just heard from. So Elias, Yosr, Aditya, and Mike will answer some of our questions and yours. Today, we're going to share what worked, what surprised us, what we're leaving behind for anyone who wants to pick it up and use it. I hope that you gain valuable insights and you leave this forum inspired. Let me hand it to Ashwin to ground us in the data. Ashwin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rami, for the comprehensive overview of the day. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to kick things off. And again, thank you so much for making the time today for this important conversation. So let's dive in. The global AI map so far has had only 2 poles, the US and China. Recently, though, the UAE has rewritten this map, firmly establishing itself as the world's 3rd global AI hub. This is driven by abundant energy, unmatched global connectivity, and ecosystem anchored by G42. The nation and its partners have poured over $150 billion to building a world-class tech powerhouse. But this massive achievement brings us face to face with a key question. What does a $150 billion AI leader look like if its most vulnerable populations are left behind? The key question that we are deeply interested in is not whether AI will gain traction, but whether it will usher an equitable economy. And why is this important? So when you historically look at the tech's evolution, technology does not democratize, it tends to concentrate. It builds wealth for the few, deepens the digital divide for the many, leaving behind the very people that can benefit most from its transformative potential. We believe that social sector is not just a participant, but a key enabler of building an equitable diffusion. AI's massive transformative power can only be realized when the organization, and especially the 3rd sector organizations, adopt AI. In the UAE, AI adoption is not about tech and infra, that's already there. It's really about the organizational readiness to do so. The last 15 months have been our focus to do exactly that. Today, the Changemakers Day marks the culmination of this AI for Good project supported by Google. To the builders, to the 3rd sector organizations, nonprofits, corporates, and government entities here in the call today, you are the accelerators. We see you as the change makers who have the opportunity to drive this AI adoption in your organizations and then help build an equitable AI economic model where no one is left behind. Today's day is purposely designed to help you do just that. One of the starting points of our journey was to benchmark the AI adoption in the UAE. And instead of trying to boil the ocean, we started with two sectors, healthcare and social impact in the UAE, and set out to answer 4 key questions. In terms of the AI maturity, where are these organizations today? What is the number one thing that is holding these organizations back? Third, what are the areas where there are AI solutions being deployed within these two sectors? And finally, where do these organizations wish AI to be adopted? We surveyed about 52 organizations, like Rami said, about 27 from healthcare, 25 from social impact, and the decision makers, and assessed their AI readiness across 7 key dimensions that you will see. In this talk, we'll only focus on the first 2 questions. This should give you a bird's eye view of where things stand now, what are the challenges, and the rest of the summit today should give you outline pathways for AI adoption, address some of the questions that we will raise in this section. So before we get started on the data, I'd like to do a pulse check in the room. Let's do some live polling. The question that you see on the screen, does your organization have a dedicated AI budget? It's a fairly simple question. Some of you may not be organizations that are adopting AI. Some of you may be builders. Feel free to assume what your client organizations may have in terms of their AI dedicated AI budget. And let's see what the room talks. We will close the poll fairly soon, so please respond as soon as you can. Do we have the results?
So we have about 53% saying no and 47% saying yes.
Brilliant. So this data very closely tracks to what we have seen in our barometer as well. You would see that in the healthcare sector, about 42% don't have a dedicated AI budget. 22% have budgets under 100K, which is about 64% of low to no budget. In the social impact sector, this is much more stark. There's about 85% of the organizations have low to no budget allocation. If we take a step back and look at the 7 dimensions of AI maturity, including AI use cases, pilot or production, comprehensive roadmaps, well-defined strategic goals, and so on and so forth, there are a few things that clearly stand out. Healthcare shows, in general, a much higher AI readiness than the social sector. We do see that the financing and budget is a critical constraint for AI adoption in both these sectors. And this is important because this directly impacts the ability of these organizations to translate the amazing national capability into organizational capability. You would also see that healthcare is advancing on AI experimentation. They have better use cases. They are more ready on the pilots. They have more comprehensive roadmaps. So we see that the healthcare is doing already experiments, but they are not yet in implementing AI as much. On the other hand, the social impact sector needs to invest a lot more just to build its foundational organization capability to adopt AI. Ultimately, it's very clear from this data that a one-size-fits-all approach to accelerate adoption may not work. Understanding why these gaps exist and how to close them is therefore essential for us to achieve the ambitious target that are set forth in UAE's National Strategy for AI 2031. This brings us to the next question. What are the barriers that stop organizations from adopting AI? Let's do a quick Zoom poll. Now, there are multiple questions. Choose the one that you believe is the most significant barrier that stops your organization from adopting AI. Stephanie, when the poll is done, if you could tell me what are the first 2 or 3 top gaps, that'll be helpful. Again, if you are not an organization that is adopting AI, but a builder, make an assumption of what your clients could face as their biggest gap here. Okay?
Yeah, Ashwin, the poll has ended and we've got maximum votes for funding.
Okay.
Followed by data security. And we have a tie on data readiness and legacy systems.
Okay, lovely. So this is slightly different from the data as you see in the following slide. The 5 key barriers to AI adoption include funding, skills, data, ethical concerns, and legacy. You would see, and we have spoken about funding in the past slide, so I'm going to skip that. But you would see that the next biggest gap is a skills gap. And given that both of these sectors have differing AI maturities, the differences in the AI readiness also align with the barriers that we see. For instance, while skill gap is a critical gap for both health and social sectors, the kind of skills might be very different. For example, in health, the gap might be more about skills for AI scaling than foundational knowledge. Similarly, you would see that healthcare sector does not have a data readiness problem like the social sector, and vice versa. The social sector does not have a data privacy/security problem like the healthcare sector, because they don't have the data to begin with. We do see ethical concerns feature here. But again, if you look at the readiness of the AI healthcare sector, they have more concerns about the legacy systems. You don't see that concern at all in social sector. The clear emerging theme is that your strategy to accelerate AI adoption needs to be nuanced and specific to your sector and your current readiness. At a broad level, we do see healthcare adoption is likely to accelerate by focusing on scaling mechanisms. In contrast, the social sector, we believe, would benefit most by building its capabilities around budget allocation, upskilling, developing AI use cases, and deployment roadmaps. I hope both of these sections provide you some clarity and helps you identify some levers that you can actually tinker around to advance along your own pathway. The complete version of the AI Barometer is available for download. You can do this using this QR code here. We'll also flash this QR code towards the end of the session today. And I wish to thank you for embarking on this journey and wish you the very best to building an equitable AI ecosystem here. I'll now hand it over to Dominique for the next section, and thank you so much again for attending today.
Thank you, Ashwin. The data gives us a really grounded starting point. And critically, the number one barrier across both sectors isn't the technology itself, it's organizational readiness. That's the regional picture. Now let's go global. Mike Grandinetti is an executive fellow at Harvard Business School, a serial entrepreneur, former McKinsey consultant, and someone who spent his entire career at the intersection of innovation and execution. He knows what it takes to move an idea to impact, and he's going to show us 3 cases where mission-driven organizations got it right. Mike, take it away.
Dominique, thank you so much, and good morning to all of you from Boston, Massachusetts. It may be 2 a.m. here, but I would not have missed this event for the world. I want to first of all just commend the startAD team for getting us to this incredible milestone, a 15-month learning journey. And at the same time, I want to recognize all of the builders for rolling up their sleeves and putting intention into action. So my plan, I've got about 10 minutes, so I want to be very, very quick. And part of what I'd hope to do is show you how 3 exceptional organizations began with a mission long before AI was actually something that was deployable, and how they were able to amplify in many, many different dimensions, delivering on that mission by layering AI into what they already do. Okay. And hopefully what this will show you are some mirrors from the Western side of the world that will convey the art of the possible to all of you who have aspirations to really scale. So next slide. So I want to talk about a number of different reasons why AI is so powerful. So let's start in New Mexico. For those of you who don't know New Mexico, it's in the Southwest. It borders on the country of Mexico. And in 2003, a single hepatologist, right, a medical doctor who focuses on diseases of the liver and the gallbladder, was dealing with this very insidious chronic disease called hepatitis C. And hepatitis C is a silent killer that really attacks the liver. And often you don't know that you are about to have liver failure until it's too late. And one single practitioner was focused on a rural area in New Mexico, and he had an 8-month wait list. You can only imagine, with a disease this debilitating and being told you've got to wait 8 months for an appointment. And so clearly that wasn't good enough. And so he began creating this hub and spoke network where he began doing mentoring over the web so that he could train other clinicians to deal with hepatitis C. And from that time, he has created a global network in 50 countries focused on a myriad of different diseases using this global telemetry network. But since AI became available, they have layered AI into their clinical decision support, and they've been able to extract a lot of tacit information from the brains of specialists that they're now able to transfer to any of their spokes or hubs anywhere in the world. And so this is an example of an organization that recognized where scarcity was. Scarcity was in the form of a specialist, and they were able to apply AI to really amplify, multiply that specialist knowledge anywhere around the world. Next slide. The second is a very well-respected institution known as St. Jude Children's Hospital. And as you'll note, first we had ECHO in New Mexico, and we have St. Jude headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee. These are not healthcare capitals. They're not academic capitals, right? These are happening in second and third tier cities. And so if we go to the next slide, this is a phenomenal promise that this mission-based organization made in 1962. Any child who is facing cancer will never have to pay. Their families will never have to pay for medical care, hospitalization, travel, housing, or food. And that unbroken promise now is being delivered at a global genomic scale. And this organization, again, building on its mission, is now housing the largest pediatric cancer data platform in the world. There are so many variations of cancer that young children wind up getting, and they're very, very difficult for specialists in remote locations to be able to study. So you've now got this global synthesis where any kind of cancer is being studied and it's being able to be really understood in a way that was never possible before. And so this is an example of, being able to deliver and amplify the mission. Right? They had their institution in place, but what they needed to do was really give a lot more insight and data to the specialists who are focused on treating these children who are suffering from cancer. Third example is creating new infrastructure. Some of you may recognize the name Michael J. Fox. He's a Canadian-born American actor who's maybe most famous for his starring role in the Back to the Future franchise. Okay. And unfortunately for Michael, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the very young age of 29. Okay. Now, this is a foundation. It's not about providing care. What it is about is providing funding to institutions that are actually working to improve the daily lives of people suffering from Parkinson's. And so they have created over the course of the foundation's life, the largest patient-reported Parkinson's data platform anywhere in the world historically. And he has partnered with Apple. Verily is an Alphabet/Google-based healthcare data science company. And what they've been able to do is turn an individual patient's smartphone into research infrastructure. So taking advantage of the accelerometer on the phone, the capture of the patient's voice, any changes in typing pattern, you can now begin to sense the progression of this disease in real time, something that was impossible when the patient was visiting a clinic every 3 to 6 months. So much higher levels of patient care are being provided through this foundation because they were able to use AI in a very novel way. So next slide. So I want all of you to take away, right? Obviously, the barometer that was just presented by Ashwin, right? Mindset is critical. And I know that one of the questions that always comes up is, where do we begin? We're overwhelmed. We don't know where to focus. So first, you're building toward a mission. Think about what is the most scarce element of your ability to deliver against that mission, and apply AI in a workflow that will allow you to multiply your ability to serve. Second, you've already got a mission, and you're probably operating in a very limited region right now. How do you now begin to scale to deliver that mission, at a national level, at a regional level, at a global level? And with this incredible world of AI that we're living in, we're going to see more and more AI devices that are going to be available to us, just like Michael Fox's foundation was able to leverage a standard iPhone or Android phone, to create new infrastructure to carry out the mission. So the takeaway here is create the mission infrastructure first. Then identify very clearly the scarcity that you need to relieve in order to create impact. And don't separate AI from the mission, right? We saw that there's a lot of lacking of funding. This is not about having a separate AI budget. This is about recognizing how to amplify what you're doing and embed AI into existing workflows today. Next slide. And then I want to just set up the discussion that is coming. So we're going to be hearing from the Multiple Sclerosis Society in MENA and a young builder, Aditya, who is working with them. I want to just show you what's happening here in the United States. So the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has been around for 80 years. Okay, they are the largest private funder of multiple sclerosis research worldwide. Very much like we're seeing with both the St. Jude Foundation and with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, they are now crowdsourcing data. They are looking to bring all of the patient data into a unified system of record database. And they're using machine learning to really understand lesions and detect them at a far more quick and accurate rate. And they're able to, understand now how disease is progressing and to model it. Unfortunately, even though they've been around for 80 years, we still don't really know what causes multiple sclerosis. And now they're really doubling down, tripling down on gathering data from each individual patient so that they have a much higher level of understanding of how these diseases are entering the body and how they're progressing along. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Dominique so that she can pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Mike. Actually, I'll take it directly. Thank you so much for sharing these powerful examples. We're going to keep seeing these patterns, I think, throughout the day. And I want to pick up right where Mike left off. The three patterns he described, multiplying scarce expertise, delivering on mission promise, building new public infrastructure, those are exactly what we set out to test in the program. And what I'm about to share next is what happened when we did. So Ashwin showed you the readiness landscape and the AI maturity index. Let me show you what sits behind these numbers. When we surveyed organizations, we heard the same thing over and over. Leaders said, we know AI matters, but we don't know where to start in a way that actually solves our beneficiaries' problems. And the Barometer confirmed it. Only 42% had a formal AI strategy. Budget allocation was inconsistent, and the gap between wanting AI and being ready to use it was significant. So we built a system to close that gap, a full deployability infrastructure, knowledge, community, practical tools, real impact vehicles, all designed to make AI adoption actionable. On one side, we went to the organizations. 5 partners were upskilled through workshops, roundtables, hands-on working sessions. And on the other side, we opened the door to builders and AI teams. And the response was something we didn't expect at all. It was extraordinary. AI teams came from across the region, a majority of them women, and we didn't recruit a single one. They found us. That alone tells you that the innovators are ready. They're just looking for the right infrastructure to channel their energy towards real problems. So from those applicants, we selected the most promising teams, upskilled them through workshops, many hours of hands-on training, and they worked together to build custom solutions for the organizations. On the organization side, we worked with our partners to extract and clearly articulate and validate challenge statements. Then we matched each team with a dedicated mentor to guide them through structured sessions and solution development. What you're looking at today is that full system in action. Organizations on one side with real problems, builders and AI teams on the other with real capability, and a structured process in the middle to connect them and turn that connection into action. So now here's what actually moved. Organizations we worked with saw a significant jump in AI readiness. Participants more than doubled their practical understanding of AI implementation, and we saw this as a massive shift. So what does that 43% readiness number actually mean? It means these organizations are ready to move, not just learn. The frameworks we built together help them plan, structure, and evaluate how to bring AI into their work with real strategies, real roadmaps to their situations. One of our partners, National MS Society, has already taken that step. You'll hear from them shortly. They're working with Socia, one of the AI teams from this program, on a solution that could meaningfully change how they operate and how they support their community. I'm genuinely proud of what the team built, and they're not alone. More organizations are right behind them, so the impact is real. This connects directly to what you're going to hear from Elias in a few minutes. He'll walk you through what actually looks like inside an organization when AI moves from an experiment to something that actually affects workflows, behavior, governance, and how teams operate. So keep that 43% number in mind when you listen to him. Readiness is what makes that transition possible. So we also practiced what we preach. We used AI throughout the program to accelerate our own work. AI helped us build workshop materials, capture expert knowledge, and develop the two resources we are most proud of. The first one is the AI use case discovery playbook that you can now download and use. You'll see the link to it in the chat. This is the first playbook. It walks any organization through identifying and framing high-quality AI use cases. It's a human-centered process, so you get to map your stakeholders, extract pain points, build challenge statements, score feasibility, and move to a 7-day pilot. It's available as an interactive notebook and a Notion template, so you can have a conversation with it and get guidance based on your specific situation. The second playbook is how to evaluate and pilot AI solutions. So this is when you've maybe figured out what solution you want to test. It picks up where the first one ends. It's built on Tom Gilb's impact estimation methodology. So it guides teams through evaluating AI solutions, building compliance checks for UAE and KSA regulatory contexts, and designing a 12-week pilot roadmap with clear go, pivot, or no-go decision points. These playbooks take hundreds of hours of workshop learning and turns them into tools any organization can pick up and use today. They're not documents sitting on a shelf. They're interactive systems designed to walk a team through the process the same way we walked our partners through it. So let me close with where we are. We have validated challenges that are open for any builder to work on, 2 playbooks that are available for organizations to use, and the Barometer that gives us a regional baseline to measure progress over time. And pilots are already in motion. This program is designed to outlive its own timeline. The tools are open, the challenges are real, and everything is available through the startAD website for organizations ready to adopt AI in the third sector. So you've heard the data, you've heard the global patterns, and you heard what we built. Now let's see what it looks like in practice. Thank you.
Okay. So now we get to see what that infrastructure produces at the solution level, right here from this program. Our next speakers are Yosr ElSherbiny and Aditya Chatterjee. Yosr is the Program and Community Outreach Manager at the National MS Society UAE, where she's built programs that put people with MS at the center, from wellness, access, education, and community connection, through both strategic thinking and a human touch. Aditya is the CEO of Socia, a TEDx speaker, and an AI systems builder who works with organizations to replace manual operations with intelligent, scalable workflows. He's also the youngest engineer to have worked at Space 42 before founding his own company. National MS Society surfaced the challenge in our workshops. Socia built the solution. They were winners in the pitch, and now they're running a pilot together. That's the story you're about to see. So, Yosr and Aditya, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dominique, and thank you to the startAD team. So first of all, we're really glad to be here. When we first heard of the AI for Good initiative, what immediately caught our attention was the focus on using AI for the purpose of driving social impact. And for NMSS, this was honestly never about adopting technology for the sake of innovation, but rather we were more interested in understanding it on a values level. And in this case, there was strong alignment around technology being used for good and for impact. Now, the initiative by startAD was extremely valuable because it helped demystify AI for third sector organizations like ours. We took the conversations on AI readiness, practical use cases, and responsible implementation, and we went back to our teams. And these conversations actually helped us decide or align on which department we wanted to improve, eventually landing on research as our primary focus. Now, let's talk about how we developed our challenge statement. So one of the most valuable parts of the process was developing the challenge statement itself. It sounds straightforward, but it actually required significant internal reflection on our part. As a people-centered organization, our instinct is always to focus externally on the needs of the MS community. But this process really challenges us to think internally and think about which systems could be strengthened, which operational gaps could be improved within our research department. It was a very iterative process, and we developed around 10 different challenge statements, eventually landing on this one, which is AI-powered support for screening, reviewing, and ensuring compliance in research grant applications. Now, Aditya, why did you choose to answer this specific challenge statement?
Right. So a bit of a brief context on what Socia is. So we come from a background of being the largest hackathon community in the MENA region, and we were introduced to the startAD initiative thanks to Rami. Special shout out to you. And we met him from previous hackathons where we were fortunate enough to win him, but also win some great connections like Rami. And our decision to join was, I would say, mainly driven by our core principle of opening doors and preventing gatekeeping in technology, in the world around us. We recognize that AI in the third nonprofit sector is often underemployed, especially for direct impact. And this is largely due to a lack of concrete commercial ties, because in the third sector, we're not driving commercialization, we're trying to drive impact at the human level. And the National Multiple Sclerosis Society Challenge resonated with a key pain point: using AI to boost research proposal efficacy and the approval/review process. We believe that this solution directly aligns with the NMSS mission to fund the best proposals and bridge operational gaps in medical research, ensuring people who need care receive it the soonest. And that aligned directly with our vision of enabling technology, giving access to those who need it the soonest. So for us, that parallelization was immediate. And that's why we chose to reflect on this problem statement.
Thank you so much, Aditya. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what this experience has taught us. So as we're reflecting on this journey, the most important shift that we made was moving beyond conceptual discussions and actually piloting and implementing the idea. We're generally excited for what's next in our research department. Now, I think the reason why we are successful in piloting signups is because of a couple of reasons. One is purpose must come first. This is something we understood together with Socia. AI adoption only works when it's anchored to real, clearly defined organizational needs. Technology should solve meaningful challenges, not chase trends. Another factor as to why this was successful is because we realized that cross-sector collaboration is essential. So mission-driven organizations like NMSS and startups like Socia bring different but complementary strengths with a shared purpose and the willingness to keep talking through the hard parts. And the last reason is we understood that human-centered implementation is non-negotiable. AI should strengthen human decision-making and not replace it. So we gave our third sector perspective. Aditya, what are your thoughts?
From our perspective, it's sort of bridging the pace difference between hosting an agile hackathon community and a structured governance of a mission-driven organization like the NMSS. For us, the goal was simple. It wasn't to just win, but we wanted to come in and sort of help and learn the process in establishing a sustainable, best-in-class system that balances rapid prototyping with the strict requirements for responsible governance, confidentiality, and long-term operational visibility for an organization like the NMSS that operates on a national scale.
Okay. Thank you, Yosr and Aditya. What you just walked us through, that process of getting from a real organizational need to a working solution, is exactly what this program was designed to produce. Now, Elias Mouawad is going to take us to the other side of the equation, because there's a question that comes up for every organization after the pilot. What happens when AI stops being an experiment and starts becoming part of how you actually work? Elias, formerly head of exploration at UNDP's Accelerator Lab, is a foresight and social innovation advisor working across public, private, and nonprofit sectors in the MENA region. What makes his perspective today particularly valuable is that Elias wasn't just an outside observer of this program. He was embedded from the beginning, working alongside our team as a social impact expert to help shape and develop what we built. So I'll hand over to Elias.
Thank you, Dominique. Pleasure to be here. And hi, everyone. So my case study explores the imperative of organizational and institutional rethinking that AI adoption forces on organizations, and it shares one way to manage it. This is the case of a large donor-backed development organization in the region, an organization that is heavily compliance-driven and highly sensitive to reputational risk. And the story is taking place around the time of the big boom, of the first big boom of generative AI and other tools. And what followed from the boom was people bringing those tools into their work, right, before any organization conversation had even taken place. So it was shadow experimentation dissipating from the outside in. Looking closer, what we realized is that AI was unevenly distributed among the team members, right? So it ranged from teams who were deeply diving into the uses of AI and experimenting with it, to those flatly opposed. And since team compositions and the scopes of the projects they're working on were so different, the effects of the application were the same everywhere. So as these practices took hold, friction started to build across the organization. Structural ones around data and infrastructure, behavioral ones around habit, AI literacy, reputational ones around the quality and the consistency of the work, operational ones around workflows, and of course the financial and administrative ones related to procurement, to investments, and etc. But moreover, what also popped up is the generalized usefulness of AI, right? So that was also a conversation that was starting to happen as well as part of those tensions. So we found ourselves to be in a place where the field was moving much faster than the organization's routine and faster than our shared understanding of possibilities and challenges. So in one case, we had the team using AI for beneficiary targeting, right? So crunching data, building models and forecasts. While all this was useful, it wasn't at some point. While AI was very helpful in collecting, compiling, and reconciling the data to build the models and the forecasts, the outputs were averaged, right? So the outputs averaged the experience of service delivery across groups, context, right, and hiding exactly the variation of this work that this work exists to see. So one of the first lessons as well that we came to is that AI hits a wall where the work is qualitative, relational, and slow to show results. So from practice, pathways and boundaries also started to emerge. The organization's response operated on different levels simultaneously, right? And built on what was already there, what was emerging. By bringing them, all of these experiments were brought under a portfolio, right? What we call a portfolio. And the portfolio is a set of coherent, time-bound, agreed upon, and safe-to-fail experiments where risks are kept intentionally low and emphasis is put on learning our way forward. As the field was growing, we were growing our experience with it. Institutionally, through mapping uses and sense-making with colleagues, we developed AI guidelines as a living document to be continuously revised, right, and aiming to balance innovation and risk. Organizationally, these informal coalitions of early adopters and experimenters started to form beyond existing structures and reporting lines. So people stepped into roles that did not exist, neither in their job descriptions nor in the organization as such, because someone had to. And we work with these self-organizing groups to move the work forward. With time, those teams kept emerging and experimented together, and the organization accrued learnings on what works, but also what needs to be in place for such work to succeed. From capacity needs, investments, roles, functions, etc. The goal of the portfolio wasn't to get it right, but to find out what right might look like and bring it back as a practice the organization could adopt and benefit from. But doing all this, two distinct areas of value emerged. Internally, we used AI to hack the bureaucracy, right? So in procurement, for example, AI absorbed a significant amount of time spent on filling documents and with the aim of freeing capacity to what requires human judgment. AI applied to procurement process efficiency resulted in around 30% time gain and halved repeated errors that are usually very recurrent in such processes. Externally, AI helped us jumpstart the work. So collect the data, write the proposals, conduct the research, what have you. But jumpstarting does not mean finishing. The human work that followed was always substantial. While AI moved the starting line, people still had to run the race, meaning teams were able to roll out the monitoring and evaluation report and keep a finger on the pulse almost in real time. But still, they had to add layers of the context to that. And then there was what AI could not do. And at the core of this work is relational, built on navigating power, right? Being present with community, building trust with them. These things cannot be delegated or scheduled, right? And this is specifically the work that needs to be done in context like the MENA region, where human interactions and relational connections are the basis of any meaningful, impactful work with people. So these relations, interactions, and presence cannot be systematized. AI didn't just bring a new tool into the organization. It changed how the work gets done, how people coordinate, how authority is exercised, how the organization understands responsibility and accountability. Tensions around data, consent, context, and quality are never fully resolved. They are continuously negotiated. And as the tools change and the field expands, the questions change with them. What the portfolio approach gave us as an organization wasn't a fixed solution, but a process to innovate in complexity, making space for emergent practice, understanding what those practices need to work well, and supporting existing energy to scale, honestly, carefully, and collectively. I'll end by saying by recognizing that not all organizations are ready and able to develop portfolios and reorganize their work. However, you can always embrace targeted and intentional innovation at a low risk, right? And one way to do this, something that I did not have access to before, were the playbooks, for example, that are now available through the startAD team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elias. The portfolio approach you described, making space for emergent practice rather than forcing a fixed solution, is something I think a lot of the people in this room are going to take away and use. So we're now moving to the Fireside Chat portion of our day, and this is where we get to the real question. What actually enables adoption? What gets in the way? How do you know when AI is genuinely helping and when it's not? Elias will be moderating for us, and we've got the full panel together, perspectives from the builder side, organizational side, and the AI global practitioner side. Different angles, one conversation. For now, everyone in the audience, start thinking about your questions. We'll be opening it up for Q&A right after the Fireside Chat. So now's the time to pop them in the question box. With that, Elias, take it from here.
Thanks again, Dominique. As you mentioned, please do start inputting your questions. We'd love to be able to answer them a bit later. But personally, I'm feeling great pleasure to be in this conversation today. It's bringing three experts, different backgrounds, different lenses, different challenges. So, and I'm excited to hear about their perspectives to the questions today. But let me start with the international perspective with Mike. Mike, in your keynote, you showed examples of three organizations that used AI differently, right? To multiply, to deliver, and to rebuild their mission. But you have also seen plenty of mission-driven organization try and stall, right?
Yes.
Can you, from your experience, maybe tell us more about what that stall usually look like from inside an organization?
Absolutely, Elias. It's a great question. And the timing is impeccable. I spent the last 2 days at the MIT AI conference. And so you can imagine that, we're really also trying to look at what success looks like and what failure looks like. I think the first thing I want to say is that when you adopt AI, it is not a technology transformation. It is a human or cultural transformation. This is the first time in history where we are dramatically changing the nature of work. And I think that in and of itself really makes it much more challenging. And a lot of people don't understand that. So one of the big mistakes people make is, they buy a set of tools, they distribute those tools, and they just assume that their employees are automatically going to understand how to use them without any governance strategy, without any training or upskilling. And so it's not about technology capability. It's a far more extensive process. And I want to go back to what Yosr said, right? It's got to be around purpose. Everything has to be driven by the purpose of the organization. The second key piece is that you don't bolt AI onto a workflow that was not designed for it. AI requires that we reimagine the way that we structure the organization, the way that we service our stakeholders. And so rather than taking an old process and saying, well, let's just layer AI on top of that, that's a recipe for failure right out of the gate. And then something that we heard about in the Barometer as well is, not just AI readiness, but data readiness. And do you have a data architecture? Have you thought through intentionally and deliberately how you're going to collect data, store data, process it, protect it, consume it, share it? And so a lot of organizations just haven't thought about their data in a very strategic or intentional way. And so I'd say these are some of the key challenges. But if I was to summarize everything, right, the AI seems to intimidate people. Somehow they think it's beyond their grasp. And I think people need to get more educated on how AI can be useful by attending workshops like this or going to hackathons like the one that Aditya had mentioned, right? And just understanding it's not magic, okay? And just to take away some of its overarching intimidation, I think would go a long way to helping people see just how powerful it is. My experience has been, I sit in a room with a group of executives. I have them lay hands on AI in the context of their organization, their role, their function. And within an hour, they have a completely different perspective on how powerful it is. And then they walk away and say, oh my God, I can't believe I wasted 3 years not taking advantage of these superpowers. So you can't learn about this stuff by reading about it. You've got to roll up your sleeves.
Thank you, Mike. I like your invitation to and I'm assuming you're speaking to different levels within the organization to roll up your sleeve and just give it a whirl and see where it goes, right? And some things are foundational before you're able to jump into just using another tool.
Oh,
thanks,
yeah,
Mike.
And let's be clear. Executive directors, yes, this. I'm talking to you, okay?
Yeah.
You can't lead what you don't understand.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Building on your point, I wanted to jump to Yosr. Yosr, the title of this Fireside Chat is Navigating AI for Good Adoption Within Your Organization. And you, as NMSS, have done that. Like we've heard today about the increase in AI readiness among participating organizations, but even more broadly. However, readiness is not adoption. Yeah. In your experience, what are a few common reasons organizations that feel ready do not move?
Honestly, a very good question, especially for the third sector. So AI implementation for third sector organizations is not just a technology conversation. There are in my opinion, there's three things that really need to be dealt with first. So first of all, financial barriers. Financial constraints remain one of the biggest barriers for NPOs adopting AI because nonprofits or most nonprofits are already focused on fundraising for other things that are key, such as program sustainability, beneficiary services, core operational continuity. So their own team, or retaining their own talent and their own team within the organization. So it can be very difficult to raise funding specifically for AI adoption or digital transformation, because a lot of donors are more comfortable funding direct community programs. So that's one point. Another very important point as well is that mission-driven organizations like NMSS, we operate within governance and accountability frameworks. What that means is that even when we want to move quickly, there are several layers of approvals, such as board approvals, budget structures, internal governance requirements. And at the same time, the AI sector moves very quickly, while nonprofits need to balance agility with responsible implementation. So there's different speeds happening here. And I think a third point I'd like to touch on is, and something that most of the speakers here have already touched on, which is organizational readiness. So NPOs actually come in a variety of shapes and sizes, as you know, and move at different speeds. And not everyone is equally prepared to pilot and operationalize AI. So readiness could also depend on things like internal capacity, data infrastructure, digital maturity, as Mike had mentioned. So I think the question today is no longer whether NPOs should adopt AI. It's mainly us looking at how organizations can adopt AI, how quickly can we adapt workflows, and which solutions actually fit within our operational realities. I think that's the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Yosr. It's an interesting point that we need to keep up with the pace of how the world is moving. However, you cannot sacrifice much on the mission, on the grounding of the mission and the work. And I think this is quite a situation third sector entities find themselves in, right? And that would require build up some courage to move forward. But maybe let's want to build up on that point and move to Aditya. Aditya, you work with NMSS to move from, again, as you've shown us, from a challenge to a developed solution. What would a roadmap, right, to Yusr's point, what would a roadmap to support and embolden organizations to move forward with AI adoption look like? From your experience, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Elias, for that question. I think that this is a very logistically important question here, right? Because if we're being honest, if any of us had a perfect roadmap, we'd probably be on a different type of panel. But I think building on what Yusr said, if there's one key takeaway from what we're doing in this engagement with the NMSS, is that the roadmap is less about technology and more so about readiness. It really, really, really starts with problem discovery. And I mean real discovery, not just where can we go ahead and sprinkle some AI. But I think the best challenge statements we saw in this program came from teams who were willing to sit with their own operational pain long enough to articulate it clearly. It's a very uncomfortable discussion to have with oneself and one's organization, right? And to that point, Yusr and her team did exactly that. They went through nearly 10 versions of their challenge statement before landing on the right one. Now, once you have that identified, I really believe that you need an internal champion. It's not about just taking an external organization and plugging it in anywhere. You need somebody on the inside who believes in that process. Someone with someone who has enough of the authority to say yes, and enough of the humility to say, I don't know, let's test it out. And then you wanna scope it down to a small pilot, something where you have low risk, clear metrics, and human in the loop set in stone by default. Because finally, you're going to end up documenting everything. And then the second AI use case you go ahead and embed in that organization then becomes 10, if not 20 times easier than the first. But only if someone wrote down what happened the first time. I think, in my opinion, the roadmap isn't linear at all. It's a loop. And the organizations that move forward are the ones comfortable running that loop more than once.
Absolutely. I think you've just laid out what sounds a very good roadmap, Aditya. Thank you so much for doing this. Let me move over to Mike. and going back to what Ashwin presented, the data from the Barometer, right? It makes, and also to touch a bit on what Yosr had mentioned before, clearly third sector organizations in the region, I mean, lack a dedicated innovation and AI budget line. And understandably so, if I can say, to what Yosr said, you have conflicting agenda around raising funds, right? So every dollar needs to go to direct impact. But from your experience, I mean, you work a lot with executives and boards, right? And you're a founder yourself. How do you frame honestly an investment in AI for leadership versus a buck to impact? How can we make sense of that? So
yeah. I mean, it's a really great question, right? And the average executive director is going to say, every dollar or every dinar that I spend on AI is one that is not going to or stakeholder or beneficiary. And I think they're missing the forest for the trees. I think they're just completely misunderstanding the opportunity. So if you go back and you look at these 3 case studies that I modeled, whether it be ECHO or St. Jude or the Michael J. Fox Foundation, right? They have used AI to dramatically expand on their mission, to dramatically impact stakeholders in a far more profound way. So this is not a taking from Peter to pay Paul. This is, we're living in the AI era. Being innovative is no longer a luxury. It is a requirement. The world is changing dramatically. And we have an opportunity to do things we've never been able to do before. If I think about the typical impact organization, they are chronically underfunded. And I think, I don't remember who mentioned this earlier. I think it was Elias. We're seeing productivity gains in employees on standard, workflows of 30 to 40%. So you're getting a tremendous multiplier effect, a lot of leverage, because you've got one person now able to do the job of 2 or 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so from my perspective, right, this is not about making a trade-off. This is about amplifying the mission. And again, I don't think until they fully lay hands on these tools and they see the benefits within their own organization, they can't understand it. Right? It's not about eliminating labor. It's about amplifying labor. So to me, an AI budget is as much as anything about employee productivity and outreach as it is about technology. Okay? Because part of the AI budget is going to be about, cultural transformation to adopt AI and upskilling. It's not just about buying ChatGPT.
And as long as it's aligned with the core vision, as we've been repeating.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you start with purpose and you start with problem discovery, as we've heard, right? And then very quickly, you can figure out where you can embed AI to amplify the mission, right? And improve the productivity of my team.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. I'm gonna go back to you. I mean, Mike just made the case of increasing investments in AI and innovation, but another important challenge for adoption, the Barometer reports, is the lack of talent, and something that you have mentioned as well, right? Which is the sort of gap that this program aims to fill. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society have been paired with Socia, so yourself and Aditya, to work together on that challenge, right? Can you share with us maybe the what made this collaboration work? You coming from your background, from NMSS, having your concerns, priorities, barriers, have you, and dealing or working with Socia. Can you share a bit more about that collaboration? What made it work? What you've learned?
Sure. So the good news is at NMSS, we were already using AI in one specific form. So we already believed in the fundamental idea that AI can be used for good. which is, again, why we were intrigued by the title of the program. Our research arm is already funding studies that place AI at the center of advancing MS research. So some examples include AI-driven neuroimaging, AI-driven prediction of MS treatment responses, AI for timely diagnosis. So we already believed in the power of AI. And when we finally created our challenge statement after this program, which centered around, of course, strengthening NMSS's research grant management process, it was really encouraging seeing how Socia responded. I think that was one of the things that really made this work. Socia really understood the broader purpose behind the challenge and really understood what we wanted, where we were coming from, and saw a new perspective. And again, we reminded one another that it wasn't just about building an efficiency tool. It was about strengthening fairness, consistency, transparency for the purpose that we wanted, for the challenge that we had, and strengthening operational capacity within our mission-driven environment. If I can just say two things that really, really made this work,
Please.
And that we really learned was that, and I'll say it again, the number one is AI adoption is not a technology discussion. It's honestly an organizational readiness discussion. I can't highlight that enough. One that needs to be intertwined with purpose, underlining that 5 times maybe. And the second thing is that pilot initiatives don't launch, not because the technology isn't there, I think as Mike had already mentioned, but because there's no alignment on both sides, organizations and startups, between the problem being solved, the need of the end user, and the long-term purpose behind the solution.
Right.
Thank you so much. So much. I want to take this to Aditya, to the opposite side of that interaction. Aditya, as a technical person, right, operating at the intersection of impact and technology, right, and you've seen a lot of those. You've worked a lot with such companies or such organizations. What does the organization actually need to have in place before the builder team shows up? Right? What is that anchor that makes your life a tiny bit easier coming into the work?
I think this is something I wish, maybe probably all of us wish someone had asked us before any of our first projects, right? Because the answer would have saved everyone about 3 or 4 weeks of heartache and sleepless nights. I think the thing no one really tells organizations is that builders can build fast, but only if the organization has already done the unglamorous homework of knowing itself. And I think that means 2 or 3 things. I'd say the first thing is to know where your data lives, not in theory, practically. Who owns it? What state is it in today? And who can give us access without scheduling 4 to 5 meetings before finding out, oh, this data doesn't even exist. I don't even know what the password is, for instance. The second thing is to really have a empowered decision maker in the room, whether that be one person, whether that be 10 people. But like I said, we need that change maker on the inside, not just a committee or a steering board that's going to die out and lose interest and I wonder, what's this meeting in my calendar after 4 weeks? We need to know that builders move at the speed of decisions. And if every yes needs 3 layers of approval, the pilot will die of natural causes before launch. And if I may add to that, I think we have to be honest about what success looks like before we even touch a single line of code. Now, whether we write that with AI or ourselves, we have to be honest, and we want to know that, saying that I want to use AI or my organization wants to use AI is not really a goal. We want to reduce the time spent on grant screening by 40% without sacrificing review quality. I think now we can build toward that. If those 2 or 3 things are in place, a builder team can do remarkable work. If they're not, even the best team in the world will just be very efficient at being stuck.
And going in circles.
In loops,
Super.
but in the wrong way.
Thanks. Thank you, Aditya. I mean, it's clearly that even with the best technical teams out there, you still need to do the groundwork internally before anything of value does count. Before I jump into the third part of our conversation, I want to go back to Yosr as the representative of MS Society. Your organization coming into this this program, right, it represents a community with very real, very human needs, right? People living with MS. And that's understanding well that the work is very human, very relational, right? Very, very emotional at points. At what point did you feel that AI was a genuine answer to something you were struggling with, rather than just a nice to have, right? A tool with looks flashy and sounds interesting.
That's a great question. So I'd like to just maybe start off by saying that we've just launched our 4th cycle of our research grant program. And that's important to note because we've gone through 4 cycles, which means we've really thought about the process, and we've learned a lot and identified core challenges from our research grant program cycles, and core challenges that needed to be addressed. And this is where I guess our collaboration with Synapse became incredibly exciting for us. We immediately saw the value of using AI not to replace human decision-making for our grant cycle process, but to strengthen and support it. What makes this collaboration meaningful is that the tool is helping us make more accurate and informed funding decisions. And I think this is what takes it away from it just being a tool, and, I guess projecting it towards it having an ultimate, very human mission. And again, the impact extends beyond the process itself. So the more, I guess, we use AI for mission-driven purposes, the faster we can find the necessary or the right people to be part of this grant cycle. Maybe then, we'll be able to speed up the process of finding the right people, the right projects. At the end of the day, there are people that are funding these research grants for us. And funding research is really a cornerstone of the work we do at NMSS. So if you could, again, use AI to improve our programs or our research grant applications, then that is what's going to lead us to better understanding, better treatment, and maybe one day, hopefully, a cure. So it's not a tool. It's beyond.
Thank you so much, sister. Thank you for sharing. I want to jump to our third part of this discussion. But again, let me go back to the audience and ask them to please input any questions that are surfacing, and we'd love to take it in a few moments. Maybe just to end with a question to Mike and to Aditya. Mike, you teach future leaders of the field at different schools, different reputable schools, Harvard, Brown, Cornell, Columbia, NYU, Abu Dhabi. And right here on this panel, Aditya is a 22-year-old that has already co-founded an AI for social impact company with real partnership with the National MS Society. What are students that you're seeing, right? What do they know about AI, and how do they see and work with AI for mission that older institutional leaders do not necessarily grasp yet?
Yeah. So
what are you seeing there? Yeah.
Aditya is the perfect embodiment of what I'm seeing. So I've been blessed to teach at some world-class institutions for 20 years, both traditional entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. The first thing I've seen is that there is a generational change. I'm going to go back to Yosr's very favorite word, purpose. We have a generation of purpose maximizers. 20 years ago, when I was teaching entrepreneurship, most young men and women, they were doing this to make money. They wanted to have a hot startup. They wanted to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or whoever that might be. God forbid, right? It's the last role model I would want my own kids to look up to. But what I would say is things have changed dramatically in that when we see our students today graduating, we're seeing several things. They are inherently building purpose into their business models, into their organizations. They are so much more environmentally conscious, socially conscious. And so there's been a real sea change in just mindset. The second thing is entrepreneurship is really taking hold. So a statistic that might blow some people away, fully 1/3 of our graduates from Harvard Business School this year are going into the field of entrepreneurship. If you had asked anybody 5 years ago if that would have been the case, they would have thought you were crazy. And I think part of it is because AI is such a superpower. It allows them to take the purpose that makes their lives important, makes their hearts beat faster, and recognize that they can actually build an organization with very low capital and very limited resources in order to be able to fulfill this sense of longing in their own hearts for having impact and having purpose. Now, there's obviously a technology component to this, and we haven't really spoken a lot about vibe coding tools per se, although I'm sure Aditya knows these quite well, where all of us are builders. All of us can build. And so what I would say to all of these chronically understaffed impact organizations is whether you're hanging out in the UAE and you've got people like Aditya running hackathons, or you're anywhere in the world, you don't need to hire full-time employees. You've got so many people that are going to believe in your mission, want to support your mission, and dedicate an immense amount of their time and energy and talent to help you do what you're meant to do. So you can bring in independent people. And so with Aditya, right, 22-year-old young man, incredibly engaged. And to me, he is the embodiment of what we're starting to see come out of these universities today, right? He's a top 1%er for sure, but he's what so many of these young men and women are aspiring to be. And I think it would be malpractice on the part of impact organizations not to reach out and embrace and collaborate with young men and women of this type. Aditya, take it away.
I appreciate that a lot, actually. You flatter me too much. Thanks, Mike.
Good. That's the kind of good relationships that we'd want to see in this community. Aditya, let me end with you before we go to the Q&A segment. As a young, passionate founder, right? How do you see that works again a lot with AI, with purpose, mission-led organizations? How do you see the future pathways of AI developing? That's from one side, right? The technology component, where do you see it going? And from another one, from your perspective as probably the younger person on this call, right? How do you see the evolution of AI opening up opportunities to the youth, right? So what is that future state, if you want, looking like from where you sit for people like you?
This conversation has been extremely enthralling, and the only way to do justice to Mike's last point is to really ricochet off of that, right? And I'm very biased here, and if I want to ricochet off of that, I'm going to try and infect everyone here with that same bias, right? So, in my opinion, I think the most underrated shift happening right now is that AI has sort of collapsed this distance that we used to see between having an idea and going and raising a Series A, Series B to go ahead and build it, right? What used to need a team of 20 or 100 or 1,000 a year, 5 years or 10 years at a serious budget can now be done by a small team, even as small as one person in weeks. That's not a small change. That's literally I would call that a generational redistribution of who gets to build and how they do it, right? For young people, but I won't even say young. I would say people who are young in AI don't necessarily have to be young by age. You could be a doctor practicing for 50 years and you might decide to pivot to technology. You are still young and nascent in the field of AI. And the opportunity isn't just to use AI, because that part is easy. The real opportunity is to build with it for the problems older institutions have either deprioritized or stopped seeing altogether. So we have mental health, accessibility, multiple sclerosis, regional language tools, civic infrastructure, where institutions only in the third sector are building. And because of those commercial ties, as I mentioned in one of my earlier points, we're not really seeing much engagement of what we call state of the art in AI today being engaged there. And I think that's exactly why this program matters the most. The conversations I like to have are sort of centric to this. the barrier to entry is gone, right? So what matters now is really taste and being close enough to real problem statement to discern it and actually understand it. And honestly, youth have an unfair advantage on at least two of those three. The third one, judgment, really. That's why programs like this one exist, so we don't have to learn it alone. And I think that's the way forward for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aditya. I really love the point on generational redistribution, right? And I think that's very powerful, and it holds really it opens pathways and opportunities. And I really like this mental framing on things as we look at AI, and as we look how it marries well with purpose, with mission, and with the values. Right, there's a generational value shift as well. What you said, Mike, that is happening. Thank you all so much. We still have a few minutes left, and we have a set of questions coming in from the audience. But maybe then we start with Yosr. The question here on how much buy-in do you have from your leadership team, and how important is this buy-in to move things forward? And I think this is to your earlier point on AI adoption. Can you speak a bit more on the leadership team buy-in, and how what was that buy-in? Was it only financing? Was it support? How was that?
So I can't say much, unfortunately, in terms of how much buy-in, but what I can say is that leadership support definitely supports our main mandate, which is to work across raising awareness, reducing stigma for people living with MS, developing resources for the community, but also developing resources for our own national MS society. So internally, and like our funding does go towards our innovative research for the UAE, which is of course highly backed by our leadership, 100% supportive. So yeah, we're actually working more towards a more system-wide approach, and that's all I can say right now.
Super. Thank you for a question for Mike. This one is about what signals tell you that an organization is truly ready for implementation and not just exploration? And sorry, Mike, if any of the other panelists want to come in on any questions, please do feel free to add. Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just let me re-articulate, make sure. So what indicates a readiness level beyond exploration? Is that right?
What signals tell you that an organization is truly ready for implementation?
Yeah. So we go back to the question that was just asked. I mean, senior leadership needs to be bought in, period. Okay. If senior leadership is not bought in, nothing is going to happen. So first and foremost, right, and I've seen this repeatedly, right? I've led several hundred exec ed AI workshops across the world. And often what we see is in the early stages, the senior leaders are trying to tell their employees, this is what you need to go do. And then the employees don't go do it. It's only when senior leadership starts modeling the behavior that they expect to see within their organization and making commitments that they truly believe that this is critical, nothing will happen. Okay. Second thing is when senior leaders not only model behavior, but they build in OKRs or they build in KPIs into the leaders' monthly, quarterly, annual metrics. And now they're saying, we're holding you accountable to bring AI into your function, into your role, and we're going to measure how you use it. And we're going to measure the impact that's going to come out of the use in your team or your role, right? I think until, so really what you're asking is, how do we move from innovation theater to real execution? And execution is when people are held accountable to get stuff done. Okay. I think that's the short answer.
Yes. Accountability as a driver. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike. Another question for you, Mike, but I also ask Aditya to come in on this one. Is there any difference between the process of AI adoption versus the process of digital transformation, pre-AI, when you look at it from the organizational lens? And if yes, in what ways is the AI adoption process different from the digital transformation one?
Yeah. So, I mean, digital transformation is a big suitcase term that's been around since the era of the web. And so this is something that many organizations have, even up until the time of COVID, right? We've known about the critical importance of digital transformation, but even in COVID time, a lot of organizations had a 25-year time frame runway, and they failed at it. They just said, we'll get to it eventually. Okay. So AI is just the next phase of digital transformation. But if you've not gone through digital transformation, we talked about data readiness, right? If you haven't worked on data readiness, then you're not ready for AI transformation. So there are some fundamental planks in the digital transformation, playbook that you have to have ready before you can start to layer AI, right? And I love what Aditya said, right? You sit in 10 meetings and you finally realize, oh, we really don't have data. Like, oh my God, we couldn't figure that out on day one. So to me, that's, they're complementary, but but what's important, I think, to understand is AI is doubling in capacity every 4 months. For a guy that spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, this is beyond unprecedented. And so the rate of change required to have AI transformation successfully occur is profoundly different because of this rapid acceleration of the capabilities. What was true in December is no longer true as we sit here in the end of middle of May. So it makes it really challenging.
Aditya, would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, so I think there's two lenses through which you look at the enablement of AI in any industrial or economic, or whether it be third sector setting, right? So there's two philosophies. I think digital transformation orients itself around, here's what we've been doing for 30 years. I want to automate this task with AI. I want to do it the same way. I want to touch point the same systems, take the same path, the same happy path. But now a human's going to do that redundant work instead of an AI is going to do that redundant work instead of a human. And that takes that human out and places them somewhere where they're doing more of audit level work, ensuring compliance. And that's where you get quality of work. But there's this new term that's coming around as we go closer to what we call AGI, or AI that's capable to reason and think on its own on human terms. So right now, you wouldn't trust ChatGPT to go and run a panel for you, right? But it can help you with the script. That's the adoption of AI. But there's also this new narrative around reimagining processes with AI first. Yeah. Now, if a process has been being done for 30 years, like, okay, let's talk about a call center, right? You have 300 different people in a call center performing calls and whatnot. Now, when you talk about reimagining that with AI, how about having one central agent that does all the redundant work of calling, qualifying a lead, for instance, and then you have those 300 people to deal with the actual business use case that comes out of that. So you're really wasting less time for your clients, for instance, and you're wasting less time of the employees, less manual work for them. They're not stagnating manually. And I think this is the next step forward in what we're going to see in digital transformation. It's when you're not going to just reimagine, you're not going to just rewrite your processes, putting an AI label on everything, but these processes are going to be broken down and built from the ground up in a completely new fashion, which no one on this call right now can really know today. It's really a process that, to add on to Michael's point, is something we call Moore's Law. Every practically 1.5 years, the stage of data, the maximum power of computing that we see doubles. So we can't really know what's going to happen in next year because it's going to be doubly as good as what we have right now. And that's the philosophy we have to look at.
Yeah. AI is Moore's Law on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
How I think about it. Yeah.
And I mean, one thing that makes me think of is that it's now a question of reimagination rather than anything else, right? And it's just what's in our heads, how far can we push, what can we imagine, not rethink, but imagine, right? And reimagine altogether. And that is something that we need to unshackle probably in our own psyches, right? And our own bodies and our own experiences.
Yeah,
Aditya,
Elias, let me leave people with, I
please.
think, a quote that really embodies what you just said, right? There's a futurist here in Boston known as Alvin Toffler. And his quote is, "The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write. It is those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." And I think we need to do a lot of unlearning in order to imagine what the future of work looks like before we can reimagine and reinvent it. And it's not easy.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me end with one last question to Aditya, because I do want to end on the students and the youth-focused question before handing it over back to the startAD team. I have a question here. For students interested in AI and social impact, where do you think we create the most value today, even before having years of experience?
This is really touch pointing on something I thought to, or I alluded to earlier, in that right now, the path to enablement, the path to creating something, you do not need to go out and climb a corporate ladder to go from engineer to manager to director to then understand how the process works from the top down. Today, you can go into GPT or Claude, your LLM of choice, ask it, okay, this is Microsoft, this is their QA team. How does it operate from the top to bottom? It'll tell you everything, the roles needed, the tools used. It'll glean all of that experience and dish it out to you in a matter of the same amount of seconds as it would have taken years, right, prior to generative AI. And if you really want to create something in social impact, I think it's really that. Now that we don't have an ideation and execution sprint happening, sequentially, they're happening at the same time. You think of something, you build it, and you don't like it, or you want to add something to it, you keep reprompting, or you talk to people, you network. And I want to link this to another question. Somebody asked that the NMSS and Socia partnership came through a structured program, right? For organizations that do not have access to that kind of infra, what is the best way to find the right technical partner? Now, there's one thing that AI has yet to replace, and that's its pitfall right now. And I really believe that would never entirely be replaced, in that you may know everything. With or without AI, you can know everything, but sometimes it's not what you know, but rather who you know, right? In the UAE, we have this concept called wasta. A wasta is like, you know somebody who knows somebody who can get you a connection to do something that's actually meaningful, right? So the best advice is to you like something, you build it. Just go ahead. You don't need 10 people who believe in you. You don't need $1 million in funding. You don't need 1,000 people to tell you you're right. You just need you. You don't need to wait for permission to say, okay, is this an idea worth building? If it matters to you, there's 7 or 8 billion people on Earth. There's going to be at least a few million others that it matters to as well, right? You go ahead and build. And the thing is, now it's exceedingly easy, despite COVID, despite the whole ongoing situation we have in the Middle East. People are still connecting through LinkedIn, through online forums such as this one. I would say go out and make those connections. You never know when there's somebody who's going to resonate with you, who's also able to place you in that same room where you can, let's say, pitch that idea and actually take it to execution. I think it just starts with just building, freehand. You choose something, you build it, but make sure you're doing more than what your AI can do for you. Go out and network, speak to people, the human touch. I think when you imbibe and marry those two together, you're really gonna get the chance to build something like Socia, because this is not just something that only I would have built. If anybody else came along with the same vision at the same time, they would have done it probably even better than myself and my team. Adam, who's on this call as well as a participant. And that's really the philosophy behind Synapse. If I didn't know Rami, I didn't have that catch up, I would really never be inspired to apply to this program with the social team, and we would never have been here with the amazing NMSS team here. It's just a matter of using AI to its fullest, not waiting for somebody to tell you, okay, this is good to build, and just going out and finding all the people you might want to connect with, because there is always somebody who knows somebody who's interested in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we still have a few questions from participants, but I am sorry we are running a bit over late, and it's already 3:30 a.m. Where you are, Mike. So thank you for powering.
I didn't notice, Elias. I didn't notice. Yeah.
Well, happy us. Happy us. Thank you so much for our panelists. Thank you. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Aditya, for sharing bits and pieces of wisdom and your experience with us and with the audience. I do apologize to the audience members whose questions we did not get to answer. I trust and hope that the startAD team can get back to you on those. But with that, thanks again, and let me hand it back to the startAD team. Thanks.
Hi, so thank you for all the speakers today, and thank you for everyone in this room and all the attention you brought us. If you stick around for just 2 more slides, we've got a gift and all the resources as well that we are going to share. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge you, whether you joined as a practitioner, a builder, an investor, or an institutional leader. What brought everyone into this room today was a shared belief that AI can be a force for good. That kind of commitment deserves to be recognized. So big ideas need a clear and calm head. Every attendee will receive a complimentary access to Takallam for a year, a UAE-founded wellbeing platform built specifically for the MENA region. Founded by startAD Emirati Women's Achiever Khwala Hamad, Takallam gives you access to guided meditations, well-being webinars, mood tracking tools, and curated articles. Your access code will be in your thank you email, which will be shared soon, and we hope you enjoy it. So everything that you heard today is backed by tools you can start using now. It's been mentioned throughout all the talks that you've heard today, and the AI Adoption Barometer gives you a regional baseline. The AI Use Case Discovery Playbook walks your team through identifying and framing high-quality use cases. The Evaluate Pilot Solutions Playbook takes you from there to structured pilot with key and clear decision points. All of it is available through the startAD AI for Good resource hub, completely free of use. If you have any questions on how to use them, the startAD team is so happy to support you, and you can reach us at startad@nyu.edu. And you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and across our socials. And we really mean it when we say the door is open. What you leave with today is not a summary of someone else's work. It's a starting point for your own. The organizations you heard from came in curious and uncertain, the same place many of you might be right now. They left us with strategies, pilots, and partnerships, and are still building on. That's what being a change maker means. Not waiting for the conditions to be perfect, not waiting for the bigger budget, a clearer mandate, or someone else to go first. Deciding what the communities you serve are the reason enough to start. AI for Good is not a vision for the future. It's work happening right now in this region by people in rooms like this one. You're part of that. Thank you, everyone.